Hey guys, what's going? Wait, there's supposed to be someone. Oh no, but it's not from the crew. Hold on.
Ah!
Nice try, pal. It may work the first time. It's not gonna work the second time.
I tried. Sinister 2.
Alright, so Sinister 2 is the sequel to the very first Sinister, a film that both Ellen and I loved on. By the way, Ellen is my cousin, the first female to finally appear on my channel in the 4 years it's been running. It follows Deputy So-and-so, who is James Ransoon, I believe, from the first one. And it follows this woman who is trying to get away from her abusive husband with her 2 kids. And Bagul is there because he's there because it's a sequel, because that's what it says in the script. Alright guys, let's get into Sinister 2. Well, we could agree on one thing.
It was terrible.
Was the Green Inferno trailer.
Oh yeah, that was a good trailer.
Yeah.
Freaked me out a little bit.
That was the only thing, but that has to do with the movie, but the movie had nothing good.
It had potential though. Austin disagrees with me.
Yeah, okay, we have a lot to say about this one, so I'm just gonna come out flat and say it. This movie fucking sucked.
It was terrible.
It sucked, seriously. Now, we're huge fans of the first movie. Huge fans.
I love the first movie.
Yeah, the first movie is in my top 10 favorite horror films of the decade. The thing I loved about the first one is how it had a real psychological horror element to it, where this one did not have that element into it whatsoever.
Also, in the first one, for me, I was terrified by the boogeyman when I was little, as is most children.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
The way they had the first one, you barely saw the boogeyman. It was like, like he said, the psychological aspect of not seeing him. In this one, he was like too much in the movie.
Yeah, way too much into it. It's like Woman in Black 2, you know. In the first one, you barely saw her. Where in the second one, she's all over the damn place.
And Ethan Hawke is such a good actor.
Yeah.
In Sinister that I don't understand why they even tried to make a second one.
Some part of me wants to believe that one of the writers who wrote the first one was thinking, God, I need to come up with some money. Let's just make the second one, please.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, Sinister did really well. Let's see how much money we can make off the second one.
And let's
even though it wasn't good at all.
And let's see how we can stretch the concept as far as humanly possible. But in this one, they're literally beating a dead horse so much throughout this entire thing.
And like all the subplots and sub-characters in this movie. I'm the person that, like, I hate it when the script derives from the main plot. And it was just so many subplots that, like, I think they threw in because they thought audiences would like it. And
like the abused mother, like her,
or like the love triangle part. Like, oh god.
Yeah, like, that mother was like a discount Rose Byrne. Seriously, she looked just like Rose Byrne.
What era was this supposed to be filmed in? Because they made that family look like they're from the freaking 1950s.
Yeah.
And it says it's supposed to be set in rural Illinois, and I'm from rural Illinois, and not a lot of people dress like that.
And the 2 little kids. Okay, now the main element, one of the main elements from the first movie was the little kids about them being little tapes. For some reason, in the first one, I remember them being a lot more frightening in the first one. Way more frightening.
And they didn't talk.
No, the
kids at the
Bagul.
So, they just stared at you. There was no words. You didn't know their names.
No.
You knew their backstories because you saw the films, but you didn't know anything else about them.
The little rivalry between the 2 twins was so.
Because of course they had to be twins.
Going to the psychological element of the first one, this movie trades all that in for just violence and gore. It trades all that in. Like there's one element, there's one tape. You saw me laughing throughout this one little tape. It was. I'll say there's a crocodile involved in it. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just the moment this thing happens, I was thinking, are you what?
Yeah, and like the way they tried to go about it, it would have been interesting if they tried to go like the folklore behind Bagul, or even like the kids' perspective. But like they were trying to do all these things.
I actually wouldn't mind seeing the kids' perspective. That would have been a pretty cool aspect.
You know, like it's almost like they tried to do that, but then they made it from the deputy's perspective. Like it was just there's no theme of person who you're following from their point of view, like Ethan Hawke last movie.
Oh, yes.
That's who you follow.
Exactly.
This one bounced back and forth through multiple people, which I think also took away the aspect.
Definitely,
of psychological.
Definitely, yeah. Now, the best way I can compare this movie to a sequel is, now, I know Halloween's a much better film, but here's the way I compare this thing. I just compare Sinister to Halloween, where the both of them have such a real horror element to them, where the second one traded in everything that made it so good into just a slasher flick. It was a slasher flick, basically. A slasher flick was the snub elements, and it was Children of the Corn without Children of the Corn, basically.
I looked at it as like Mean Girls and Mean Girls 2. Mean Girls, such good movie.
I love Mean Girls. You guys have seen the top 5.
Mean Girls 2, They tried to do everything they did in the first movie, it just didn't work.
And not to mention this movie was boring as hell too.
Yeah, it was really.
Oh my, I was.
And I get scared really easily, and I didn't. The only time I jumped was like the jump scare.
Again,
that's
now
normal.
Now again, I'll address this to every up and coming horror filmmaker out there. Jump scares are not scary. Of course, they'll be like, like you'll get a physical jolt in you. But we want something psychological out of this.
I can get a jump scare going down the street. Like I don't want to go to a jump scare in the horror.
We want to pay $11 for us to go like the whole time.
Yeah, I want it to psychologically fuck me up. Like,
I was just waiting for something to happen, and nothing happened throughout the entire thing. Of course, some scares did, but Ghoul wasn't even that scary. And
he was the scariest part about the first movie.
Oh my god, I don't know what it was. He didn't look nearly as terrifying as in the first movie.
They showed his face too much. And there's one scene in the beginning, you're gonna feel like there's promise for this movie. There's no promise for this movie.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, by the way, because I remember in the very first movie, the opening scene is terrifying. It's disturbing, and it makes you go like, ugh. Where in this one, it didn't nearly have that same amount of fright into it. Not nearly.
Yeah, the scene I'm talking about was the one with Deputy.
Yeah. Sinister 2 basically took everything that made the first one great, and it literally took a humongous shit on the first one. That's exactly what it did.
Yeah, it just spread it too thin.
Anyways, I'm gonna give this a 0. It's one of my worst films. I didn't think I was gonna hate it this much. I hated this more than The Gallows. You know how much I hated that movie, so yeah.
And I'm gonna give it a half star just based on those elements he was talking about, because it had promise. It was like the writers were like, oh, we could go this direction, and they talked about it, but it was kind of unfinished. Where they could have just made this movie so much better.
Thanks to my cousin Ellen for joining. Finally, we got some perspective from finally from a female audience member here. Finally, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm also on Twitch. You want to follow me on all those platforms. All the links in the description below. If you liked what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And until as always, guys, I'll see you guys next time.